Chapter. I am going to open up and talk about something that I have talked about before, but I don't really make an emphasis on this page about. But like I said in the caption, a few years ago, I was $170,000 in student loan debt. And I was able to completely pay that off in just a few years. And so I get asked questions about that. And I also know that a lot of you guys ask me, I'm on a budget. How can I eat healthy on a budget? How can I, afford to get back in shape if I can't afford a gym membership and all those kinds of things. So I wanted to do a quick little video telling you exactly step by step what we did to get completely out of debt and how I stay out of debt now that I'm debt free. So if you guys are watching this, leave a comment. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I know I always say that, but it really is so fun for me to see where you guys are tuning in from. And it's cool, like I get to see that you guys are all over the United States. And let's see, also leave a comment and let me know if you have ever heard of Dave Ramsey before, and if you're doing his program, which baby step you're on. Now, if you're watching this and you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry, I'm gonna talk about it in just a minute. Tina is from San Antonio. Awesome, I've been on the Riverwalk down there, it's beautiful. Allison says, hi from Texas, cool, I used to live in Beaumont. Patricia from Colorado, Kelly from Georgia, awesome. Chris from El Paso, amazing. Jeanette from Missouri, fun, you guys, it's so fun for me to see where you guys are from. Joe from Texas, cool. Kelly says, love Dave Ramsey, paid off $150,000. That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay. So if any of you guys have paid off debt, put it in the comments below, because I know how when I was going through and trying to pay off this debt, it was so encouraging to hear other people's success stories. Sarah from New Mexico, Kim from Wisconsin, amazing. Oh my gosh. Jenny from Brunswick, Georgia. Hey guys. Hey. Lori from St. Louis, Missouri. So awesome. So let me tell you a little bit about my background story. So Patricia says, yes, love him. We are on investment. Patricia, that's amazing. Whitney from Ohio. Katie says, Roosevelt, Utah, not too far away. We were working on getting out of debt, about to read his book and start on Gazelle Speed. Awesome. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about my background and my story with getting into debt, why we got into debt, and how we got out of debt. Amy says, I'm aware of Dave Ramsey, but I've never done it. Okay, the biggest suggestion I can say is just do it. Patricia paid off $100,000. You guys, this is amazing. Oh my gosh, I love hearing success stories like this. Okay, so basically, years ago, a lot of you guys know I'm the oldest of 10 kids, and my parents were able to give me a lot of things, but money for school was not one of them. And so I knew that if I was gonna have to go to school, I was gonna have to pay for it myself. And so I did a lot of things. I got scholarships, athletic and academic scholarships. I worked 3 jobs during college, but I went to a private school. I got a private education, and so I ended up taking out a decent amount of loans. I think I had like $30,000 for my undergrad. And Dana says, this is all new to me, super interested. Cool. Well, I hope you guys learned something. If you have any questions while I'm talking, just leave it in the comments below. After I got married really young, and so when my husband and I left grad school, we had about $30,000 or $40,000 in student loan debt, which was a ton. And then he got accepted into grad school, and that was a tough decision for us because we both came from really poor families, and both of us wanted to kind of get out of that cycle. And so we, he got accepted into grad school but didn't have any scholarships for it. And so where he went to school, which was Carnegie Mellon University, which was one of the top business schools in the country, was about $65,000 a year. And I wish in hindsight that that I would have, it's funny, when you're in college, it's almost like everybody's taking out student loans. And so I just felt like, oh, well, we'll just take out student loans and we'll have good jobs later. And, I didn't understand the magnitude of what that was going to actually feel like. I mean, we had $170,000 in student loan debt by the time we were done. Our monthly interest alone, we were paying over $1,000 a month just in interest on these loans. And so it was overwhelming. I remember getting done with grad school, and my husband had a really good job. He was working for ExxonMobil, a financial analyst, and we were just drowning in debt. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but I couldn't because we couldn't survive off just one income. And I remember saying that I felt like an indentured servant. Like I felt like we were slaves to the debt, and that's literally how I felt. It was such a burden to know that we had I mean, we were making good money, we had good jobs, but we had this massive amount of student loan debt. And I just remember feeling like it was such a large amount that there was no way we were ever going to be able to pay it off. And so then I got introduced to Dave Ramsey. My dad gave me one of his books for Christmas. And, I'll tell that in between, fast forward a few years, what's kind of cool is I actually was a speaker at their women's business boutique last year because we went through their program. So it's like really cool how it's all come full circle. But basically how Dave Ramsey is like America's money guy, and he teaches Americans how to get out of debt. So if you've never heard of him before, if you have an iPhone, on the podcast app, you can download his podcast. He has a YouTube channel, and he has a radio show. He puts tons of information out there for free. Or if you want to buy his book, The Total Money Makeover is like the best book you can buy. Or a lot of churches offer Financial Peace University classes. They're about $100, but I mean, well worth the money. So basically what he teaches is baby steps. So he says, if you're in debt, then baby step number 1 is just to get a $1,000 emergency fund. So do whatever you need to do. Have a yard sale, sell furniture on Craigslist, go mow lawns, like anything you need to do, lift up couch cushions to find extra spare change, like do anything you can to get a $1,000 emergency fund. And I remember at the beginning, trying to save $1,000 felt like, oh my gosh, that was like, I didn't even have, we had no extra money. Every single month was paycheck to paycheck. And so first and foremost, he says, okay, get your $1,000 emergency fund, and then you need to create a budget. And that was the hardest part for me. I wasn't used to having a budget, and so what I did is we sat down and we had an Excel spreadsheet, and we said, okay, what are all the areas that we spend money on? We had rent, we had utilities, phone bill, food, eating out, kids' school clothes, gas, insurance. So we put everything in an Excel spreadsheet in a category. And then what we did is we created a budget. So if you want help with that, I know they have a free app called, I think it's called Every Dollar. By the way, this is not at all, this is not a sponsored live at all. I'm just telling my own experience, my own story. So the Dave Ramsey team doesn't even know I'm doing this. This is just because I get a lot of questions about it, and so I wanted to share my experience with you guys. And so what he recommends is the envelope system, where you create your budget, and then you go to the bank and you get cash, and you put that cash in an envelope for each category, and then once it's gone, it's gone. So we started with the envelope system. After 6 months, once we were really familiar with the system, then we just switched to keeping an Excel spreadsheet, and then every week I would go through my checking account and put the expenses into the Excel spreadsheet. Now there's apps that can do it for you. I was just old school, and that's how I did it. And those first few months were so hard. It took a couple months for me to really figure out a budget. I didn't know, because before I would just go to the grocery store and spend, or if we needed something for the house, I would just buy it. And it took me a really, really long time to get comfortable with being on a budget, and to also feel like I wasn't trapped by it, right? I had to change my mindset from I'm creating this budget myself because, and what Dave always says is, live like nobody else now so you can live like nobody else later. And I just would say that to myself all the time. When I wanted to buy something, I'd say, live like nobody else now so I can live like nobody else later. And so baby step number 1 is getting a $1,000 emergency fund. Baby step number 2 is the step that most people get stuck on for the longest time, and that's what we stayed on for a really long time. And that's where you pay off all your consumer debt, your credit card debt, every single card that you have. Actually, not just credit card debt, all your debts, because that's where our student loan went into baby step number 2. And then what Dave teaches you to do is to take all of your debt and then put it in order from smallest debt to largest debt. So you don't pay attention to the interest rate at all. And I remember at first had a hard time wrapping my head around that, because I'm like, well, I'm paying 15% on this credit card here, and I'm only paying 7% on this loan over here. So shouldn't I pay the higher interest rate first? And what Dave teaches is that it's less about math and more about behavior. And so what you need to do is get super gazelle focused and really, really focused on paying off that debt. And then what you do is you pay minimum payments on every single credit card except for your smallest dollar amount debt that you have. And so what you do is you live on a tight budget, you have your $1,000 emergency fund, and then any extra money that you have goes towards paying off that very first debt. And it's cool because when I found it, I had a credit card that had $400 or something on it. And so it was a really cool feeling because I got that quick win of being able to like pay off that credit card, it felt so good. I was so proud of myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, I paid this off. And then what you do is you keep paying minimums on everything else, and then you take what you were paying on the smaller debt and you add that to the minimum payment you were already making on your second smallest debt. So he calls it the debt snowball, because then you pay off your second one and then you can take that amount and add it to the minimum on your third debt. So it was kind of cool because it was really fun, because we were like ching, 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 ching. We paid off credit card, credit card, credit card. And in the meantime, it was really freaking hard. Like I remember the hardest thing for me was groceries, because I wanted to buy healthy food for my family, and it was really hard for me to be disciplined not to spend more than what was budgeted for. And so what I would do is I would sit down every month, and mid-month I had this Excel spreadsheet of like where we were at for the month and what our goal was. And if I was more than 50%, I was like, crap, I can't spend. And I would just be like, okay, what can we cook that's in the pantry, or what can I make that's in the freezer? And I was super diligent about that spreadsheet. Like, I checked our bank account in that spreadsheet every day, every other day for a couple of years, to make sure that we weren't going over that budget. And then what I did is I had a whiteboard that was in our kitchen, and I wrote what our family goals were on that whiteboard, so I was seeing it every single day. And that's one of the things that I think is one of the most important things that you can do. And I don't know if Dave even really teaches that in his class, but for me personally, when I have something in front of me and I see it every single day, it is a constant daily reminder of what I'm trying to achieve, and also why I'm trying to achieve it, and then what milestones I need to hit to get there. And so in our kitchen, we had a whiteboard, and like if people came over, they would see it, and it had our budget. And I just it was so important to me to see that every single day. And it was really hard. It was really hard not to buy the furniture we wanted, and not to buy the clothes we wanted. And I mean, we lived like on the teeniest, tightest budget ever. And I hustled. I took on every side job. I babysat. I mowed lawns in the evening. I mean, I had a college degree, and I was doing all this side hustle work because I wanted to be out of that debt. I didn't want to have that weight on my shoulders. Tabitha says, love Dave. My hub's just ordered a lot of his books, and we're going to tackle our student loans from med school. Michelle says, how do you choose a budget? Well, like some of those apps will help with it, but basically what you want to do is go through your checking account, what I did, and then I said, okay, this is on average what we're spending in all these areas. So like I took the last month, and then you take every single thing that you spent on, and you put that, for me, I put it into an Excel spreadsheet. And one, it just opens your eyes sometimes. It makes you realize, like, holy crap, I was spending $50 a month in convenience store purchases when I was filling up my gas tank. I'd go in and buy a soda pop or a candy bar, whatever it was, right? And one just makes you aware of where you're spending your money. Or at the grocery store, like if you throw in a package of Oreos, or you throw in a bottle of wine, or, maybe you did need that bottle of wine. But you know what I mean? Like, it just makes you aware of, okay, these are things that I can cut out of my budget. Even going out to eat is one of the worst things. Dave always says, I don't want you to see the inside of a restaurant unless you're washing the dishes, and he gives kind of tough love. And then the other thing that I did is I listened to his podcast every single day. And you can fast forward through the commercials and stuff, but it's a 3-hour podcast. And just as I was tidying the house, or if I was driving, or if I was going for a run, I had that podcast in my ear, because it was a daily reminder of the steps I needed to take to get there. And 2, it was really inspiring to hear stories from other people who were now on the other end of the fence, that had been where I was at that moment. And it gave me hope that, hey, somebody else did this, and somebody else knew the struggle that I was going through too, and they can work past it and pay off that debt. And so what happened is we got stuck in baby step number 2 on that big student loan debt. And I remember that it felt like, oh my gosh, this is never going to end. We had, I think, over $170,000 in debt. I think like 150 of it was student loan debt or something. One was the car, one was a couple credit cards, and then the rest was student loans. And so what we did is we sold. So for 7 years we had one vehicle. We shared one vehicle. My husband would walk to work, or I'd give him a ride, or we'd take public transportation. And what we did is we drove basically a beater car for like a year. And then what I did is, instead of, like, say for example, if I was gonna have oh, Ashley, I miss you too. Oh, my best friend from Texas. We have not talked in forever. I'll call you here soon. And so, and what he teaches is that don't ever do debt. Just never do debt. Basically what you do is you cut up all your credit cards and you say, I'm done with debt. We're going to pay off this debt and we're not going to take any more debt on. And so we didn't buy new vehicles. Instead of taking out a loan to get a new vehicle, we just drove old cars until we could save up and pay cash. So we bought like a beater car, and then we saved up and just had like a little bit nicer car. Sold the beater car, had a little bit nicer car. Saved up, sold that car, had a little bit nicer car until I was finally in a reliable car. And then we just hammered on that student loan debt, and we had to stay super focused for years getting out of that debt. But let me tell you, the day that we got through baby step number 2 and we paid off all of that student loan debt, all of those credit cards, and literally had no payments coming our way except for a mortgage payment, it was the most amazing feeling in the whole entire world. I felt like all of a sudden I could live my life the way that I wanted to live it because I didn't have this debt hanging over my head. Dave always says the servant is slave to the master, and we felt like we were servants to that debt, that the debt was our master. And it's so amazing to not have to feel owned or by that debt. And I think one of the hardest parts is that in our culture, it's so normal to take out debt. Like when you're going to college, it's like, oh yeah, just take out student loans. Everybody does it. It's like if you're going to get a car, it's like, oh, just get a new car. You can just get a loan. We can get a low interest rate. Just take out a credit card. You can build your credit. And it's like, I almost wish somebody would have taken me when I was 19 years old and said, you do not need to take out debt. Like, you don't. My education, do I regret it? No, I got an amazing education, but I will tell you that I wish that, and a lot of times we would live off of the loans. Like we paid rent with the loan money. We did. And I wish that I would have recognized what a burden that was going to feel like afterwards. And I wish I just would have lived on it, when I was younger, not taking out as much debt. And so basically then what Dave Ramsey teaches is once you get to baby step number 2, which is paying off all your debt, then you get to baby step number 3, which is a fully invested emergency fund of 3 to 6 months. And so he suggests that you actually don't even buy a house until you're through baby step number 2. And Julie says, this couldn't have come at a better time. Thanks. I was just going through degree regret. Yeah, it's, I don't know. I just wish that, I wish more people would counsel college students on the impact that is going to have afterwards and how it can really hold you back for years after you graduate from school. So then what he says is have a fully funded emergency fund. So basically, if you were to lose your job, if you were to have a medical emergency, basically a major disaster, you have enough money sitting in your bank account, and that's not in investments, that's in liquid money that you can pull out at any time. You have enough money to live for 3 to 6 months without panic mode, without having to sell your house, without having... And so that was actually kind of hard because all of a sudden we got done with our debt and we're like, oh, we're out of debt. And 3 to 6 months, that's a decent amount of money that you need to have in an emergency fund. And so we got through that step, and then baby step number 4 is invest 15% of your household income into a retirement account. So, but he says, and it goes against a lot of the advice that other people will tell you, but he says, do not invest in your Roth IRA, don't invest in any retirement accounts until you get that debt paid off. And so, we didn't invest in any of our Roth IRAs or retirement accounts. We got laser focused, gazelle focused on paying off that debt. And so per his program, then baby step number 4 is putting 15% of your income into retirement accounts. And then once you're doing 15%, then you start saving for your kids' college. Once you save for your kids' college, you work on paying off your mortgage early. And then that's baby step number 6. Baby step number 7 is build wealth and give generously. And so, that's one of the things, especially now as a single mom, that's like the most, as a kid, we were moving all the time. My mom was in and out of different homes, and it was hard. I was always moving from house to house to house. And so one of the best things I could give my kids is a security of knowing that, that house is getting paid off early and that every single month the money is going towards paying off the house. And It was hard. It was one of the hardest things that I've had to do, and it was one of the things that I've had to have the most discipline on. And I think the number one thing that helped me during that time was to surround myself with the right people. And so what that meant for me was listening to that Dave Ramsey podcast every single day. I mean, at this point, I could probably teach Financial Peace University because I have listened to hours and hours and hours and hours of Dave Ramsey's podcast. But even though I knew what he was pretty much going to say in all those situations, it was a daily reminder of, okay, this is why we're working to pay off the debt. This is what we need to do. These are the steps we need to take. Here's a story and an example of somebody who's done it just like me. And I cannot tell you what an amazing feeling it is to be completely out of debt. And so now that I am out of debt, I refuse to go back into debt. I just won't do it. I know what a horrible feeling it is to be in debt, and I don't ever want to go there again. And so I do things just a tiny bit differently than Dave recommends. Where do I find Dave Ramsey podcasts? They are, if you have an iPhone, it's on the podcast app on your phone. If not, they have a YouTube channel, a Dave Ramsey show. And then actually there's a Dave Ramsey app you can download too. So for example, like with my business now, we run so much money on advertisements and things that I do put that on a charge card, and then it just gets paid off every single month. So I do things now just a tiny bit differently than Dave recommends. But I don't carry any revolving debt, and I just make really wise decisions. So I still live on a really tight budget. My budget's a little bit probably bigger, well, for sure bigger than it was when we were just starting off, because we were trying to cut out all the fat. And now I allow myself to have a little bit of a bigger budget than I did at the beginning. Sandy says, I need this, I've really buckled down. And then I think one of the most important things too is to surround yourself with other people that have similar goals. You know, if you're hanging out with friends that are always going out to eat, or if you're hanging out with friends who always have to have the fanciest cars and the fanciest house and keeping up with the Joneses, like, it makes you feel like you want to do those things too, right? And so, but if you're surrounding yourself with people who have similar goals and are similar focuses, it makes it a lot easier. I think one of the most important things we did was just write those goals down, so I saw them every single day. So instead of like coveting what other people had, it kept me laser focused on what my goals were, because we wanted to get out of all that debt. And so, you know, that same advice, I think I get a lot of private messages, especially from women, saying, you know, I'm a single mom, I just went through a divorce, how do you take care of yourself financially? And I think a lot of the discipline that I learned years ago when we were paying off all the debt directly translates to how I've been able to really thrive and do well after my divorce. So one of the things I always talk about is I started to surround myself with the right people, people who believed in myself, people who didn't doubt me, and that made the world of difference. And I started writing my goals out and putting them in places that I'd see them every day. Like, even if you see behind me, see that pink post-it note? Those are goals. Those are words of affirmation. I hustled, and that's what Dave teaches too. Do everything you can to hustle, to bring on side jobs, to partner with the right people, to build your business. And then he talks a lot about that if you are going to start your own business, don't quit your day job, right? So have your day job and then hustle on the side if you want to start a side business as well. That's awesome. My husband's student loans are $400,000. It's such a high amount, it doesn't even seem real. So Dave, if you were to call him the Dave Ramsey show, he gives tough love. So he would probably be kind of harsh with you, but he would say, you know, it depends on what kind of job he was able to get by going and getting those student loans. So he talks about how if you have a big enough shovel, you can get out of that debt quicker. Oh, that's awesome. Let's see. Danae says, thank you so much. So nice to see your past vulnerability when you are so successful now. It gives me hope. Sandy says, I noticed you talk about the cost economics with food prep too. Yeah, you know, I try to talk about that a lot because I think a lot of people think that eating healthy has to be really expensive. And it can be, for sure. Like, if you go to McDonald's, it's definitely cheaper to buy off the dollar menu than it is to order a salad. But there's so many things that you can do. That's where I learned to cook healthy, you guys. All the healthy recipes that I share with you guys, I learned while I was on a budget because I had to learn how to cook the right kinds of food because I wanted to lose that weight, but we had to get out of debt. It was just like, and I think there's a lot of parallels between being healthy and staying with a caloric budget and being financially healthy too, and paying off your debt. And so the biggest advice I can give you is to track everything. Track your income, track your spending, stay on a budget. And that is hard. It's really freaking hard, especially if you have two people who maybe aren't on the same page. Let's say one's a saver and one's a spender. I tend to be a saver by nature. I don't know. There's a comfort and a sense of security for me to have money in my bank account. Let's see. Taylor says, "You are so precious. Love hearing your testimonies and encouragement. Wish we lived close. I need a new workout buddy." Amy says, "Just started my budget and weight loss journey. You're such an inspiration." Thank you so much. Thank you, Amy. And then the biggest thing that I would suggest to you is keep that budget first and foremost. Like, you want to see that every single day, because when you recognize, oh shoot, like it's halfway through the month and I've spent more than 50% of my grocery budget, you're aware of that, right? You don't want to get to the 27th of the month and be like, oh crap, I ran over my grocery budget, a week ago. You want to always be aware of where you're at with your money and with your spending. And the thing that Dave always talks about is live like nobody else now so you can live like nobody else later. And I will say, like, it's awesome. It's amazing now to be at the point where, like, I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, I do not take for granted being able to go to the grocery store and buy the produce that I want to buy. Like, I remember there were years where I would just like crave strawberries, but we couldn't afford strawberries, so I wouldn't put them in my cart unless they were on sale that week. Or I would like really want steak, but it wasn't in our budget, so we would have whatever chicken was on sale or something. And I know what that's like. And I still shop at Walmart, by the way. I know I get a lot of slack on this page for some reason for that, but I still do most of my grocery shopping at Walmart. Old habits die hard. But the other day I was putting avocados in my cart and I was putting berries even though they weren't on sale. And I really just remember in that moment feeling grateful and recognizing, like, I don't take for granted the fact that, like, now that I'm out of that debt, it's such a good feeling. I don't mean that at all. Like, I hope that doesn't come across as like braggy. I'm just trying to, I don't know. I know what it's like to be in debt because it was so hard. It was so hard for years and years and years and years to stick to that budget and to not feel like this is going to take so long and to lose that momentum. Like, everything we did was laser focused on paying off that debt. And so now, you learn all those really good habits. So I don't spend outrageously. Like, I am a saver. I like to save money. And also it taught me to be disciplined and to, there's a maturity level that comes to not spending when you don't want to, or when you want to, it's like, man, that's like, okay, I'm an adult now. I have to make adult decisions. And so, if you guys are watching this and if you guys are in a massive amount of student loan debt like I was for years and years and years, I would definitely recommend checking out Dave Ramsey's program. I'm not sponsored by them. This is not at all an affiliate deal. Like, I do have time. So this is kind of a funny story. Sometimes people ask, I ended up being a speaker with the Dave Ramsey team last year, and that only happened through this Facebook page, actually. I just put a post of his Smart Money, Smart Kids book where you teach your kids how to spend wisely. And he co-wrote that with his daughter, and I posted about it on the Facebook page, and I tagged them, and then they reached out to me and they said, hey, your audience is similar to Dave's daughter, Rachel. Can we fly you out to Nashville, and can you guys film some of these vlogs together on eating healthy on a budget? And so I was like, yeah. So last July, they flew me out there. If you look on YouTube, there's a bunch of vlogs of Rachel and I talking about eating healthy on a budget, some of the hacks that I have, and that went really well. And then a couple months later, it was about a year later, they reached out to me and said, hey, we're doing this women's business boutique, and we know that you struggled with a lot of failures in your business, which another video, another time, I'll talk about that. You guys probably see the success, but there were, oh my goodness, so many failures along the way. A lot of times people think success looks like this. Nope. It looks like sometimes you feel really good, and then sometimes you plummet and you fail, and then you feel embarrassed and you feel... Anyways, I'm going to digress. We'll talk about that in a different video. But, yeah, I don't remember where I was going with that thought. But does anybody have any questions while you have me here? I have about 10 more minutes before I have to go pick up my kids. And so if you guys have any specific questions about how we structured our budget or how we paid off that debt or how we stayed motivated, put it in the comments below, and I am more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have. The best thing we ever did was cut up those credit cards. Literally, I took a pair of scissors and cut up the credit cards, because then that temptation isn't there, right? If you have that credit card in your wallet and it's like, oh man, we really need this thing, or I really want that new pair of shoes or whatever, it's like, well, the money's not there, the credit card's not there just to put it on a credit card. And so Oh, darn. Sorry, there's a lot of comments coming in. I didn't see them. Danielle says, what was your food budget while doing the program and eating healthy? I was trying to think about that the other day. We were spending, I think, about $450 or $500 a month, and that included eating out, and that included all of our household items, like paper towels and things like that. So the reason, some people think that's really high still. For me, it's because we weren't eating out. If we did, that went into the food budget. And two, that included things like paper towels, toilet paper, diapers, wipes, formula, all those kinds of things. And that was for a family of 4. Jenny says, that is so awesome. Were you able to pay cash for your new home? That has got to be an amazing feeling. So, no, I didn't pay 100% cash for the house. And then what my goal is to have this house totally paid for by next year at this time. I don't know if that will happen, but that's my goal. Megan says, do you have any advice for finding the 5 people who will most likely form who you are? I feel like as an adult, it's hard enough to find friends, let alone ones that have the same dreams. That is such a good question. So I even struggle with this. Like, I don't want you guys to look at me and think that I have it all figured out. How do you find the 5 people? So it's just a feeling. It's hard to teach that. I like to surround myself with people who, like my best friends, like Ashley, Holly, all the people that have been best friends for me in my life, Ricky, all these people are people that, like, in some way or another, I kind of look up to them. Not in every area, but in some way, and they make me want to be a better person. And it's not people, like, I don't spend time with people who just gossip about other people. Like, I can't handle that. Sometimes mom groups are hard for me because I feel like a lot of moms like to sit around and gossip and just complain about their husbands, and it's like, I'm a really driven person, and I kind of get bored of people who aren't driven. And I'm not, like, I'm friends with people, but like my closest friends, it has to be somebody who's kind of similar to me. And, somebody who doesn't just watch TV all the time, but like reads books and likes to listen to podcasts. Those are kind of the people, like my tribe, because I want to surround myself with people I want to be like as well. And then I sometimes don't have, 5 people in person that, like, I really don't. I mean, I have a couple close friends, and I have a ton of friends and acquaintances, but people that I really spend a lot of time with, I'm really selective. And then I just find podcasts. I know it sounds so crazy and cheesy, but I will hammer that point home again and again and again and again, that surrounding yourself even virtually with the right people makes such a difference. When I was trying to pay off debt, I became obsessed with Dave Ramsey. When I was trying to be successful with my business, I became obsessed with other internet marketers. Now I'm trying to grow and develop as a person. I've become obsessed with this Impact Theory podcast that I love so much. And, that's what I do, is I kind of like get laser focused and become obsessed with whatever we're trying to be successful at or focus on at that phase in my life. And then I surround myself with those ideas all the time. And then you also have to very selectively take the toxic people out of your life, and that's the hardest part for sure, especially if a lot of those people are family members. I'm still cordial and I'm nice, but I don't share details of what I'm doing or what's going on in my life. I just keep it very platonic. Natalie says, how long did it take you to pay off your student loans? For us, it was probably, I don't know, 4 years maybe, I think. We just got crazy about hustling, literally took on every side job imaginable, drove cars, mowed lawns, babysat, and then worked our normal jobs too. Elizabeth said, just bought Financial Peace Jr. Awesome. Christian says, oh, you're so amazing. This is what I needed to hear. I need to start paying off my debt. It's always on my mind. Are the podcasts free? Yeah, they're 100% free. Yep. Carrie says, that Rachel Cruz episode was how I led to you. Awesome. That's so cool, Carrie. Danae says, how did you do your meal prep weekly? Danae, I have a bunch of awesome videos about meal prep. If you just scroll through my videos, you can see. The hardest part too is just making the decision to get started. I think that's one of the hardest parts. Taylor says, how did you get or keep the motivation after your move? I hated the feeling of being under that much debt. I wanted to move back to Idaho so bad, and I knew we couldn't afford to do that until we had that debt paid off. And so that was always on my mind. I didn't want to grow up. We grew up I love my family, but we grew up without a lot of money, and I didn't want that for my kids. And so for me, it was an emotional decision for sure, of wanting to get out of that debt. Jesse says, how do you handle credit cards with it being saved online, Amazon? That's my downfall. I just use my debit card. So I still use debit cards for sure. I don't like to keep cash. So that was my only beef with the envelope system, was that I misplace cash, and it sounds so stupid, but I just do. And so that's why after about 6 months, I switched to the electronic way of keeping track instead of like the cash envelope system. But the cash envelope system is a great way to get started because it like teaches you how to be disciplined with only spending exactly what you've budgeted for and not spending $1 more. Angie says, I needed to hear this today. My husband and I just started on this journey. Thanks. Awesome. I'm so excited for you. Sarah says, each day, did you just input what you spent into the Excel spreadsheet? Would you be able to share a blank copy of a sample Excel budget? That's a great idea, Sarah. Yeah, I could probably do that. Yeah, I didn't do it every day because that became super time consuming, but I would do it probably every 5 or 6 days. And for me, it became kind of a fun game. Like, to me, it was like, okay, how close can we get to hitting those numbers? And then if we had wiggle room in our budget, it'd be like, cool. Like, I budgeted for, $30 a month in clothes for between me and all the kids. And so it's like, if we didn't spend that, it's like, cool, like I can go and buy a pair of shoes if I want. And so it's not like you have to live on this awful, you can never go out to eat. Like, we had an entertainment allocation in there, so we could do a date night once a month because that's important for your marriage too. So it's not like you have to cut everything out, you just have to budget for it, and then you have to actually stick to your budget. Jill says, what side jobs did you do? How did you make it work balancing out with spending time with kids? It was hard. Like, I am not gonna lie, it wasn't fun. Like I said, I started a direct sales company. So I joined. I was Sensi. I was a superstar director. So I ended up over about a year moving to their top leadership position. I babysat. So my son was 6 months and I brought in a 6-month-old little boy. So I watched, and we lived in DC at the time. So childcare was really expensive. So like I was able to bring in an extra $1,000 a month just from babysitting that one child. And then I mowed lawns on the weekends. What else did we do? Man, it's funny how you forget, Anyways, those are some ideas for you. Dave gives a lot of ideas. He always talks about driving like Uber and things like that too. Christian says, I took all my husband's credit cards when we got married. Haha, I don't believe in them. Would you consider sharing your Excel spreadsheets? That's good. I'm glad you guys are asking that. I can for sure do that. Or maybe I can do this in a blog post and put those Excel spreadsheets. And now everybody's budget is going to be a little bit different. But if you guys want a really good template, Every Dollar is the Dave Ramsey app, and it's free. And they have suggestions on budgets that you can set. Melanie said, did you have a Costco card at that time? Even with diapers, paper towels, toilet paper like that, you can get there. It feels like it kills the grocery budget. So we used to call Costco the $100 store because I never could leave without spending at least $100. So I personally didn't shop at Costco a whole lot because, like you said, it was really hard for me to stick to my budget when I would go to Costco. So I would instead just shop. I literally did and still do all my grocery shopping at Walmart. Sorry, Walmart haters, don't kill me in the comments. Chase says, what podcasts are you listening to these days? Please do share. So Impact Theory is my #1 favorite podcast. It is hosted by Tom and Lisa Bilyeu. Tom Bilyeu was one of the founders of Quest Nutrition. I think, well, both of them, Tom and Lisa, a $1 billion company. And Impact Theory literally changed my life, and I don't say that lightly. His whole thing is teaching people that human potential is nearly limitless, and then he brings massive people who have done amazing things with their lives, and he brings them in and teaches you how they did it, and he studies the mind. And so I listen to that podcast every single day. I also listen to Marketing Secrets by Russell Brunson. That's a good business one if you own your own business. The Tim Ferriss Show by Tim Ferriss is a really good one. My friend Drew Manning, his podcast, The Fit to Fact Fit Experience, is amazing. Sheroic is a new one by Tom Bilyeu's wife and Cassie Ho, who is the founder of Blogilates. That one is really cool if you're a female entrepreneur. They give lots of tips and things like that. Melanie says, everyone says to buy in bulk from Costco. I love it there, but I feel like it kills my budget every month. Do you have a card there then? Awesome, I just answered that question. Patricia says, what are some of the marketing podcasts you listen to? Yeah, Marketing Secrets by Russell Brunson is really good. That's my top one, I would say. I like Russell Brunson. He's a nice guy. I actually know him in person. Andrea says, my husband is military, so we live away from family and friends. We have people wanting to visit us all the time, and it has hurt our budget so badly. Any advice on ways to kindly tell them? So I would just, our whole family knew that we were on a budget, and that it was kind of embarrassing to tell people, yeah, we're in debt. But once everybody knew what our goals were, it was like, sorry guys, we can't come home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. We just can't afford it because our goal right now is trying to pay off this debt. So we would budget for one trip a year. Usually that was to come home for Christmas or something like that. And then everything else, we still would do stuff as a family, but we'd do free or cheap. And so, it is a little bit, makes you feel vulnerable to tell people that you're in debt, but it's amazing what happens once you do start to talk to people. You'll either get one of two reactions. One, people will be really supportive and want to help you hit your goals. Or two, and this is usually because they're also struggling with the same things, they will kind of be critical of you. And that's, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, I cut those people out of my life. People who weren't supportive of me and my goals. I wasn't rude to them, but I just, kind of phased out those people. Olivia says, how did you balance still spending quality time with kids and family and taking on more side jobs? It was hard. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was hard, but I knew it was a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain. And we would bring our kids. I remember laying mulch. We had this job where we were laying mulch for all the Targets in the Washington D.C. area. And I brought my little 6-month-old and I had him in my backpack on my back. And our kids, even now, my kids know I live on a budget. So if we go to the store. And even though I can't afford to buy them stuff now, it's I just tell them we can't afford that. We didn't budget for it this month. And then if you want to teach your kids about budgeting, their book is really good. It's called Smart Money, Smart Kids. And it's all about teaching your kids, instead of paying an allowance, you teach them about, they have commissions. So there's certain chores that are worth a certain amount. And then it teaches them the value of money at a young age. And it's a really, really good book. Terry says, how did you pay off your student loans? So if you go back and listen to the beginning of the video, I talk about how we followed Dave Ramsey Total Money Makeover book, Financial Peace University, and went through his baby steps to pay that off. Betty says, can you leave your favorite podcast in the comments? Yeah, I will after we're done. Kat says, you're such an inspiration. My mom passed 18 months ago. Oh, I'm so sorry. And I had gastric bypass 3 years ago. Congrats. But I'm still 30 pounds from goalie. I've almost paid all my debt off except 3 cards. Yay! Okay, so Facebook only shows me 4 lines, so I unfortunately can't read the rest of your comment. But Kat, I'm really proud of you. That's awesome. Danae says, thanks so much again. I was meant to be exactly where I was supposed to be today to hear this message. You're amazing exactly when you need it. Oh, thank you so much. You guys, and I'm just a normal person. I think sometimes people are like, oh, you're amazing and you know this, but I'm just a normal person just like you, and I make mistakes. I've made so many mistakes, so many wrong turns, so many failures, and the difference between somebody who fails a lot and somebody who doesn't is the ability to get back up, the ability to dust off your knees and say, this is embarrassing, I messed up, I screwed up, but that doesn't define me. Just because I failed does not mean I'm a failure, and I can learn from it and become sharper and become stronger and become better. And I think that's the difference between people who constantly are achieving goals and people who feel stuck, is the ability to surround yourself with the right people, ignore the critics that are constantly telling you can't, or you're not good enough, or that you failed too many times, and stay laser focused on what you know you want to achieve with your life. Constantly write those things down, put them all over your house. Like you guys see, I have Post-it notes literally all over my house of daily reminders of the kind of person I want to be, the goals I want to hit, and keep a positive attitude. So anyways, you guys are amazing. I hope that was helpful. If you guys have any more questions, just keep putting them in the comments below. If you guys are watching this right now, could I ask a favor from you guys? Facebook just recently started allowing reviews on Facebook pages, and I only have a handful of them. And so if you guys enjoy my videos, if you guys could go back and give me a good review in the review section, I would love that and appreciate it so much. I know there are a lot of you who think positively of my page, but there are, just because it's a new thing, there's not a lot of reviews. So you guys are amazing. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that there were some tips that were helpful for you in there. I would definitely recommend listening to Dave Ramsey podcast. He's an amazing teacher, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.